Welcome to Speak as One. I'm Julie Coriath. Today we have with us Jamal Gross. Hi, Jamal.
How are we doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well.
Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Glad to be on the show.
Well, so, we're here to talk about mental health and athletes, which you know a lot about, being a trainer, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But I'd love for our audience just to get to know a little bit about you, where you were raised, and how you got into becoming a trainer.
Sure. So my background, grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, originally from Maryland. I went to University of Maryland as well. Around then was really where I got to itch for professional basketball. I grew up playing, and it was a big part of my childhood, but once I got to university, that's kind of when I started pursuing it as a profession. Mm-hmm. I was a manager for the men's basketball team at Maryland. Then I became a graduate assistant, got my master's degree in business, and while I was in grad school, started making connections with NBA personnel and different people around the league. And my first stop out of college was with the RGV Vipers, which is the G League of the Houston Rockets.
Okay.
So then from RGV went to Houston, and since then I've worked with the Portland Trailblazers, Phoenix Suns, NBA All-Star team, and a lot of different programs.
That's had to be an incredibly exciting time in your life.
It's been a fun adventure, working with some really unique players, great organizations, great staffs, high-level people. It's been a blessing, and I'm definitely a lucky person to have gone through it the way that I have.
Yeah, and you say blessing, and is faith an important part of your life?
No, without question. It's. I grew up the son of a pastor, mm-hmm. So it was definitely kind of a foreign concept to have a Sunday that wasn't in church. Mm-hmm. Then beyond that, it's just, you start off with it as a rudimentary part of your week, but in time, for me, as I grew up and learned, I developed my own relationship that's kind of helped me grow, helped me learn, helped me develop, and it's been a beautiful one. So
yeah, that's so going back to your time at the University of Maryland, what we're hearing now around college athletes is quite concerning. We're hearing the numbers. In 2022 there were 4 deaths by suicide in the month of March and April, I believe, and we're hearing a lot about athletes and mental health. When you were at Maryland, did you see that? Did you see athletes struggling, or do you feel like it's been since the pandemic and there's been a change?
That's a good question. For me, I think the tricky thing about mental health and seeing people battle it is it happens in so many different ways, right? Everybody goes through their own journey, their own battle, their own experience that is unique to them. So before I quickly say that I wasn't as aware in college, I think I did witness people go through their own path. I just, at the time, I didn't recognize it for, a mental health area of growth or a mental health challenge for them. But it's definitely a big part of it. There was a guy that I coached against when I was in college, who I later worked with in the NBA, and there was an unfortunate tragedy with him when it came to suicide. So it's scary and unfortunate how prevalent it is, but it's also, sports have provide this unique opportunity for you to actually have a team around you while you're going through certain things. So I as challenging as it is, there's definitely some beautiful parts to my experience that I'm excited to share as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to talk more about your colleague in just a little bit, but it's interesting, I think, because we're hearing more about mental health more than ever now, right? Mm-hmm. And I think what you said can be so true, is that maybe you don't understand if somebody's going through it, or you don't even recognize it, and you do have these team members around you. And now that we're starting to see that it's 38% of men struggle with depression and anxiety in college athletes, and women it's a little bit higher. And so now that we're starting to see these numbers rise, I think the importance of being a team almost has to grow in a different way.
Sure.
To make sure that you are taking care of each other beyond your physical and kind of like that team health. And do you agree with that? Or?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Sports, to me, I grew up in basketball. I grew up playing basketball and AAU buses and tournaments and stuff. And you go through your own exciting adventure with playing a game, but in the conclusion, sports should serve as an opportunity to grow. You as a person, you as an individual, your ability with relationships, your ability to recognize things, right? Sports, there's so many different beautiful life lessons that come out of just being a kid growing up playing sports and then doing it at an elite level as a high Division I or even a D3 school. Is just playing sports, it'll do some things for you. And one of those things, and an element that you're kind of talking about, is the importance of realizing that you have a team with you with everything that you do, right? With certain relationship challenges that you might go through, certain self-doubts, there have been times, even me, where I wasn't sure about something or I was doubting myself and my team picked me up, and there is no premium you can put on that. And to add to that, now I'm in a place where not only I'm helping lift others, but I am quick to turn something that's supposed to be individual into a team environment, right? With how I work professionally, with how I move, training guys. Like if you feel like you're alone in something, you're not. Let's figure out how we can team up and make it a goal, a unified goal that we can all accomplish.
Yes, and our whole mission with Speak as One is and what we say is we are healthier together.
Right.
And really bringing out the conversation around mental health and making it a lot like our physical health. And you're hearing that more and more. When you're at your optimal physical health, you don't stop working out. You're working out harder, you're lifting heavier weights, and how can we start treating our mental health the same way?
Yeah.
And making it a together thing, because then it separates this certain isolation that people feel when they're like, okay, I go see a therapist, and it becomes a very lonely world instead of saying like, hey, yeah, I went to see a therapist, like, if you're ever interested, I can give you your number. Like, make it a conversation and being a true team where you can talk about all of those things and bring each other up. Yeah, I think it's just one of the parts that I'm seeing that's so important. What else is new is, NIL, and these young kids are now, getting money. Also, social media has always been around, but it really doesn't stop the fact that there's people out there that are, really pretty much bashing some of these young kids that are still impressionable. And it's hard to see them as impressionable when, they're tall women or men and they're athletes and you think they should have it all together. And it seems to me like if these professional athletes who make tens of millions of dollars are coming out about their mental health and they really have to focus on sports and sponsorships, then imagine how it must be trying to juggle grades, NIL, social media, trying to have a life, playing the game, practicing for the game. I mean,
yeah, it's not easy. It is not easy. It's the unfortunate truth is that there's a lot of schools, a lot of programs that will stress student athlete. The student comes first, and a picture is painted before you get to college. There's this picture painted about academics and how they are the priority and everything else is secondary. But when you actually step into it and you have to go to your 6 a.m. practice and still have to be at the 8 a.m. class, when you have to come back in the evening for workouts, when you're traveling on the road, sleeping on the plane, you have a 3-page paper due the next day, you're juggling life. Like you're 19 years old. And we're not just talking about going to class and going to practice. You're physically exhausted. It's not just a kind of a workout. No, you're physically exhausted from working out. And then you still have to mentally produce, on an academic level. So it's all that stuff. It's a lot to juggle. And it is definitely a full-time job. There are college athletes who are working and doing a lot to put the school in a better position, the athletics program in a better position, you know, and all of that stuff. I get excited when I hear about NIL, you know, deals and how they're helping change some lives, but it's also scary because it's coming with its own set of challenges that add to making this a weird, you know, experience. So I holistically, I sympathize with the juggle, but I also am excited about how that process actually turns you into a very gifted individual if you allow it to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, well, I've gotten to meet a couple of the NIL foundations, be a champion in Texas One here at UT, and they seem to really care about these athletes and are wanting to try and do more besides just like hand them a check.
Right.
Both of these foundations they care about them as a whole person, as a whole being. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's really, it's just really heartening to see.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You love hearing stories like that. You love seeing connections like that and relationships like that.
Absolutely. So on the trainer side of it, I think one of the things is when we see sports, we see the athletes, we see the coaches, and there are so many people behind making all of this come together, and training them is one of them. Can you just kind of paint the picture of that for us? I mean, is your schedule equally as intense as theirs?
Yeah, so yes. Every job that I've held, and I've been a manager, I've been a graduate assistant, I've been a video coordinator, I've been a player development coach, I've been a sports-specific coach, right? And in those titles, every single one of them, I'm on the court before the players, I'm on the court after the players. I'm in the coaches' meetings before the head coach walks in, I'm in the coaches' meetings after he leaves. I'm there during the summer, I'm there during the off season. It is definitely a grind, serving everybody and kind of being in a position to not only produce, but know what you're talking about. You'll lose a locker room quickly if you don't know the plays, if you don't know the game, if you don't know the system. So it requires a lot of studying, it requires a lot of sacrifice, but it is a hectic schedule.
Yeah, and then would like to go back earlier. You talked about losing a colleague to death by suicide. Do you see? And once again, we've been talking about athletes on the court. Do you see that is happening like behind the scenes with trainers or people that are working behind the scenes, that there's becoming a difference in people's mental health, or maybe they're talking about it more? Or is that something that's evolved since the pandemic, do you think, or has it always been the same?
Well, I think the conversation's more prevalent than it ever has been. I think it's more it's more of it's easier to talk about mental health today without being scrutinized or embarrassed by it, and if anything, being encouraged to do so than it ever has been. You'll see more conversations about that in locker rooms. You'll see more spokesmen speaking up about it, different players I've worked with who are super passionate about it. And you have to take care of your mental, because the truth is, if you allow it, any given sport, it'll tear you apart if you allow it to do so. So I think it's more socially acceptable than ever, yes, to have those conversations.
With your colleague, what did you feel like there were signs? Would you mind sharing us a little bit more about his?
Sure. Yeah. So it's tough. It's tough sharing this story, but I do think that there is such an importance in sharing it, because I have no interest in allowing what happened to my friend not serve as an experience for somebody else to get better from. So with me, I was working in the NBA. It was a team that I had been working for about 7 months or so. And when I started working for this organization, a buddy of mine started working for the same time. We both were at the kind of the bottom of the barrel when it came to coaching staff. We were entry level positions in the coaching ranks. And we were 2 weeks into COVID, and there was a lot going on in his life, right? He had just become a father. our jobs just required a lot, coding, late nights, just travel was a lot of work, and most importantly, it's COVID. So it's this unbelievable world shutdown experience that none of us has ever been through before. There's no clarity on what's going to happen next. There's no right answer. Some people are just stuck in their homes. And every now and again, we would pray, we would just hang out. He was a really good dude. He was a funny dude. He was sharp. And I didn't have any reason or thought to suspect something was bothering him, except for one night, he texted me in the middle of the night and he said, Jamal, can you pray for me? He texted me at 3 a.m. I woke up, I saw the message, sent him this long text message, and the next morning I went to him. I was like, hey man, you okay? How's everything going? And he said, yeah, I'm good. I'll catch you later. And later that day, he went downtown and bought a gun, committed suicide in front of a relationship in his life. And as heavy as that moment was, like I didn't know about that because I wasn't downtown. I stayed in my apartment, or in our apartment. But an officer came, knocked on the door, and that's how I found out about the whole interaction. And and I remember being on my couch, I'm crying my eyeballs out because my roommate, my friend, my coworker had just made a decision that was irreversible, and I felt like immediately my brain goes into, okay, what did I miss? What could I have done better? How could I have helped him? It's just shock, right? You don't know exactly what to feel or what to think. But again, as tragic as that moment was, there's another depth that it goes to because I didn't know his parents, I didn't know his family, and nobody really knew how to get in contact with them, but we were living together, so I knew that their names would be on the lease. So I go to the front office of our apartment complex, so there's some news that I have to figure out and deliver, called his parents, and they fly out the next day. We're packing up, we're crying, we're telling stories, we're crying, we're just figuring out all this stuff and crying. But throughout it all, I start to kind of grab onto the fact that if I limit this moment to just tragedy and pain, then that's all it'll ever be, right? But if I find a way to channel that into an experience that somebody else can learn from, the pain doesn't stop. It becomes something better. Like it becomes something more beautiful. And I, to this day, as tricky as it is, as difficult it is, I do think that there's a lesson in there about just checking in with your friends, having a moment. Hey, how you doing? I'm good. No, seriously, man, how you doing? What's going on? Is there anything I can help with? Being vulnerable, being authentic, being yourself, it holds more weight than I think some people realize.
100%. I totally agree with you. And thank you for sharing that, because I know it's probably never easy. But like you said, I think when people hear about others taking their life, there's automatically this sense of, obviously sorrow and sadness, but in a different way than if somebody has a disease, right?
Sure.
It's almost like this they don't ever celebrate the life or talk about, it is almost like a disease. It is almost like a disease took over their brain and said, it has to end now.
Yeah.
And we should still celebrate those people, that lived here and cared about people, and they were cared about, and exactly what you're saying, like share it to other people in case, so they can learn. So you can do exactly what you're saying, which is, hey, check in with your friends more than saying, how you doing, or you'll be fine, or just don't worry about things. It's okay to be vulnerable and say, hey, let's take this time to really dive into what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we all have a part to play in it. For some people, there's somebody who's going through something, and part of their role is being vulnerable enough with themselves to admit that, yeah, you know what, let's talk, let's go to lunch, right? To take the step of bravery and say, I could use help with this. There's another role of you being the first person. If you feel like you're okay and things are going well in your life, you can be a support for somebody else, right? You can check in, hey, how you doing? And then a third role that's not talked about enough, and this happens in locker rooms all across the country. It's easy to kind of make fun of that moment or to make light of that moment or to, you're being soft or whatever it is. But as a bystander, you have this role of potentially supporting somebody being okay, and that it may seem trivial, it may seem light, it may seem, awkward at first, but that's the kind of stuff that saves lives. Mm-hmm. Like it's the kind of stuff that changes lives. It's the kind of stuff that can help somebody be the best version of themselves. And it even yields dividends on the field, because when your mental is taken care of, like when you're in a good place, you feel good about certain things, you play different, you perform different. Now there's not this voice in the back of your head that's constantly doubting yourself. Now you're like, no, I'm about to give these people 30 and 10. I'm about to score more than anybody else. I'm about to perform at a space that nobody else is able to perform at. So it's not just about having these cool, vulnerable moments. It's actually about unlocking you to be your best self.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And for a while there, I was, because the reason I started this is from my own mental health journey and watching my son, who loves basketball, and seeing him just for this short time, just like struggle, not even a short time, it felt like a very long time. Mm-hmm. And to grow out of that and to see the young boys he plays with, they're so hard on themselves. Mm-hmm. And they're just so young to be that hard on themselves, right? But when you're passionate about something, it's taking that passion and working towards every area like what you're talking about, and yes, your mental health, to let that passion really shine through for you and for the people you're playing with and for the people who enjoy watching you. Because when we take care of ourselves mentally, it helps my neighbor, it helps you, it helps everyone else when we're taking care of ourselves and giving back in ways that can help us be mentally strong. And I was just found it hard for me to want to, for a while there, relate mentally strong and mental health, because I didn't want to, I'll just back up a little bit. When I was going through it, I went through everything was just either super motivational or clinical, mm-hmm. and I wanted to hear real stories. Mm-hmm. And the motivational part of it at that time felt so unachievable. So when I talk about it, it's like, wait, you can talk about the really hard moments in life, and then we can still also talk about how to make that moment and to help you grow. Right. Yes. Right. And so, I love that I'm hearing more about that lately, like more about vulnerability, more about people wanting to take care of yourself and trying to help you grow, and letting those moments that you're feeling really sad be okay too. Right. Yeah.
Right. With the times in my life where I've been, I can't begin to say how many times in my life I'm working out a player, we're working on the court, the music's playing, they're shooting, but because they're missing shots, because they're such workers. Like I work with people who want to work, right? So because they're such workers, their natural disposition is do better, perform, whatever. And there's moments where I can see it's like, you're not missing shots because your form is funky or mm-hmm. something else is on your mind. We can go to lunch. You will play better. You'll get more out of going to lunch right now and sitting down and talking than you will with shooting 1,000 more shots. That's not going to help you at this point. Mm-hmm. So like sometimes it's all connected. It's all tied, right? And you can't just skip one. You have to take care of your body. You have to take care of your mind. You have to monitor the relationships in your life. There's a formula to performing at a high level, right? And that's true no matter what we're talking about. Like the majority of our conversation has been about college athletes, and in the same breath, the majority of my career has been working in the NBA, right? And the guys that I've studied up and close, the people that I've been privileged to work with, all-star players, Hall of Fame guys,
there is something unique about the detail of every step in the process, right? They're not saying, all I have to do is take care of my body and my game will fall. I'm like, no, I got to take care of my mind. I got to train my mind. I got to discipline my body. I have to discipline my health. So there's a lot of steps to truly being great, and there's even more steps to being a one percenter. And all of those people have a high level of discipline when it comes to mental health.
Yeah, it seems like it, and it seems like more of them are talking about mental health more than ever, and actually going through hard times in their life. So I remember in 2016 when Kevin Love talked about having panic attacks walking out off the court, and I remember it almost made me feel normal, because at that time in my life I was starting to have panic attacks. It's like when I was going through a divorce, and I'm like, if that guy who seems like superhuman
right
is having them, then wow, it just made me feel a little more normal. And I love that they're speaking out about it more. Yes, they take care of their mental health, and they do go through times just like all of us.
Yeah.
And I think it's so helpful for everyday people for them to use their voice, especially for young kids who look up to them.
Yes. It's people are so quick to jump to, all right, they have $100 million, so surely they're fine. They have, fame and wealth, surely they're fine. It's not easy. Don't get me wrong. Having wealth and to be free of financial burdens is a great concept, and it is something that a lot of people would like to get to. I know myself, I'd love to be there. But in the same breath, when you have families and people constantly asking you for money, and you're not aware of whether this person is really here for you or just here for a connection, and that's constantly happening everywhere you go. Every time you go to social media, there's an embarrassing photo of somebody that one time somebody crossed you up 5 years ago that just keeps coming back on the internet. When you're constantly being scrutinized for the team's not playing well and it's your fault. I'm one guy, I can't make the whole team do whatever. Like you're under a microscope, and for those reasons, there's a lot of different attacking points at you. And we all have our own journey. Like we all have our own mental things that we deal with in our own personal life. So they're just as human as we are. I'm just as human as the college guy that I'll work with. So there is no. Mental health doesn't respect the fact that you have $100 million behind your name. It doesn't respect the fact that you're the best player at this university. It does not respect the fact that you're a 16-year-old kid. We all get attacked different ways. Now, in the same breath, another important thing that I'd argue about mental health is that people can kind of consistently take it to a heavy or dark place, when the truth is a big formula that I've noticed for a lot of the people I've worked with, the most I'd say, is laughter. They take care of themselves by being goofballs, right? By telling jokes in the locker room, having a funny moment at practice, being serious, locking in. But I can't tell you how many times, like Chris Paul he loves doing this. I'll be walking to practice, and he'll like spin a ball backwards, and he'll pass it to me to the point where I'm shocked. Hey, Jamal, can you get that? And I look stupid because I'm reaching for a ball that's going away from me, and he gets a crack out of it. But like small stuff like that, just laughing, teasing your friends, like all that kind of stuff. It's an important part of just being okay,
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, because we still need to bring joy and have joy in life. And I think that when we're going through something that is dark and heavy, it can either spiral down, which is what happened with me. But I'm somebody, I've struggled with mental health my entire life.
Right.
But now I have the tools and resources because I work on myself daily, and I got a lot of help, and I feel really fortunate that I was able to do that, because a lot of people can't. Now I understand how to, have a moment, like maybe I need a little tear break right now,
right,
and then figure out a way to spiral back up. And that is by having laughter and joy. And for me, it's like sometimes when I'm just feeling like I've had the hardest day going home, and my kids are goofballs, right? Kids are goofballs. They're so fun.
Yeah.
And to
Blast.
to keep that going even as we get older. Like, we don't have to be so serious all the time. We can laugh, we can have fun, we can kind of grow backwards in some ways and still do the things that we did when we were younger, and enjoy life even when it's heavy. 100%. Well, so right now where you are in life, what are things that you do, or what are things that you see players do to take care of their mental health? Like, can you talk to our audience about actual, either physical items or that they use, or if it's meditating or specific, is it morning routines?
Sure. So for some it's a consistent routine, right? I know some guys who every game before we go out on that court, there's a yoga ball, they play the soundtrack that they like, they have a checklist, read this book that is their prep work for any given game, because games to some are the most stressful time. Other people, I've seen some cool things with yoga or an intentional period to check out of their sport, right? If you're playing Division I sports, if you're playing college basketball, college sports, professional sport, your world is often revolving around that thing. So having some clean time away where you're just cooking, where you're listening to your favorite artist, where you're like you got playing a video game, having something away where basketball shut off for a second, football turned off for a second. It's just you and a Disney movie that you like. That stuff is huge, and you got to have a good time for it to just be your space, right? Other physical things, releases that people like, yoga, getting creative with ping pong or something. I've seen, and there's a part of any given sport. There's a reason why you started playing, right? Regardless of what it is now, you're ultra competitive, you're trying to make money from it, you want to win a championship, whatever that reason is, that's fine. But when you first started, there was something innocent and pure about picking up a ball, right? Whether you're playing baseball, football, basketball, it was the trash talk with your friends, being in the backyard, who's the best. There's something like childish about it, and you can't let that go. I've seen at the most impressive environments that I've been in, the NBA All-Star Game, the 75 greatest players, with the Phoenix Suns or Portland Trailblazers, the best guys I've been around, there's a joy that they still get about the game that just is inescapable, right? I can sit down and just talk hoops with Devin Booker. I can just, I can't shoot half as good as Damian Lillard in my dreams, but I'll challenge him to a shooting competition just for kicks, and he's like, man, quit playing. If you ever get too professional, too business, too serious, find a way to get on a court, to get on a field, and just do the thing that you felt, the reason why you fell in love with the game to begin with, and enjoy that. Don't let that go,
Yeah, okay, so what I hear is they stick by a very strict routine, most all days.
Some guys are super regimented, some guys they got a new music every day.
Okay. But for the most part, there's still a routine in their days that they have to stick to. Whether it's waking up at a certain time, wouldn't you say that they have to stick to a routine?
Yeah, some guys.
Okay. And then yoga and different exercise, and cutting up and having fun, and then detaching from the sport. And the reason I'm kind of going through these is because I feel like it's not only important for athletes, it's important for all of us.
Yeah. And
I think that it's just a kind of a great example to hear that even professional athletes have to detach from their sport. If you're, whatever work you're doing in life, I just had to learn that recently. And I said, I have to take breaks. It's so important to take breaks and to have fun. And I wasn't doing that for a while, because it was the first time I've been an entrepreneur. I was just in it, and then realized, okay, I have to stop and take a break. So I just love that.
I appreciate that. Another thing that I get super excited about that I've seen other people do is immerse like immersion in somebody else's life, right? The second their problems get super big, super heavy, they say, let me talk to you, what's going on with you? And then, or they have a kid and they get obsessed with their basketball game, or they have, your problems don't really seem quite as massive when you start checking out some others in your lives, or even just helping somebody else. It's part of the reason why I'm a coach, why I love training people, is there's not much of a better feeling in sports than helping, like seeing somebody day one, taking them through this journey, and somewhere down the road they're doing something that they couldn't do before. It is such a rewarding feeling that you played a small little role in helping them get there. So I say that to say, like, when you give to somebody else, that stuff, it'll help take your mental space to a whole new levels.
That's so good and so true. I mean, for me, I live downtown, and one of the ways that I try to give back with the work I do, but when I walk outside our door every day and I see somebody that doesn't have a home, I instantly, and I try to give in different ways, whether I buy them smoothie or different, not every day, but I really do try and give back. I have the kids give back, because it takes you out of anything that feels like it could be so heavy. Yeah. And then I'm sure for you, and do you see that a lot of players, is faith important to them, or is it not so much? Is that I know it's important for you, just trying to get a sense of what goes on in the sports world.
Yeah, a lot of the guys that I'm close with, it's a recurring conversation, and it's a really exciting thing for me to hear. But Dane, CJ, Chris, I've worked with some guys who not only are incredible players, but there's a level of intentionality with their faith. That's just it's all inspiring. So
yeah, that's good to hear. And I think even if maybe faith isn't your thing, there's ways that you can still tap into yourself, whether it's meditating or not tap into yourself, but actually tap into awareness, or just go outside and realize that there's trees, and there's tap into something that maybe fuels your soul in a way that, for me, that's faith, for you, that's faith. Find out what that is for you.
Right.
And another thing, I just feel like what you've been talking about with sports is the team. And if you don't have, a sport or a team that you're a part of, go find your people. Go find your people who can support you. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jamal, I really appreciate you being on today and opening up about, your dear friend, and, using that to help others. And then also helping us today learn about, ways that we can, just take our mental health to a point where we're thinking about it like our physical health, trying to do, whether it's a routine, whether it's yoga, whether it's different workouts, whether it's taking time away from work, whether it's your faith, finding out what works for you and really expand on that to help your brain feel strong.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast. Love helping people grow and kind of re-hone their awareness of relationships and things they can do in their own life to kind of graduate to the next level.
Yeah, I really sense that about you. It's just been such a pleasure getting to know you.
You as well.
I want to thank Jamal Gross again for joining us here at Speak as One. And if you're an athlete and you already have that team setting, that's awesome. And we want everyone to feel supported. Athletes, and if you're not an athlete, go find your team, go find your tribe. We want to be a part of that too if you'll let us. So go check out everything on speakasone.com or our YouTube channel, Speak as One. And we are healthier together. And the ways that you can make that happen are by liking and subscribing and sharing this with your friends. And we'll see you next time.